Good morning. Welcome in, everybody. We're going to give a few minutes for folks to get themselves set up and into the webinar here. Just to give you a sense, so you've got a sense of sort of how many folks we've got, that sort of thing. Currently, we've got about 120 folks in on the webinar. We pre-registration had about 230 or 240 that registered, so great response. Thrilled to see that. What we'll go ahead and do, it looks like our folks sort of coming in are onboarding in. So we'll go ahead and dive in. Just quickly introduce myself. My name is Andy Mountain, President and CEO of GBSM. We're leading the reauthorization effort on behalf of the SCFD, and we're thrilled to welcome you here. Let me take a minute to introduce Andrea Albo, the head of the SCFD.
Thank you so much, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Wanted to spend some time and just give a little opening here before we dive in. I've had the honor of working alongside our talented team for the last 6 months, and I'm just thrilled to be here with you this morning. Thanks again for tuning in. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting, a little bit about myself. I am a proud seventh generation Colorado native with deep roots in our regional community. I'm a social worker who has spanned now 5 industries of work from public health to law enforcement, aviation, and now here in this beautiful space. I pride myself in being a systems thinker with a people-centered philosophy, which is a big part of what attracted me into this space. I grew up in generational poverty and didn't have access to the other than free days that came along. And as an adult in exposure, opportunity came in a powerful way. And yes, that includes awe, joy, wonder, and beautiful experiences that shape our beautiful community. I have been busy getting out in the district with meeting so many wonderful people, learning and recognizing the work that you do across the wide spectrum. A couple of months ago, I came across a woman in a gift shop at one of our organizations. We had an immediate bond over a great piece of art in the shop, which I did politely surrender because I saw how much it meant to her. I saw so much of myself in her, and I asked her how she enjoyed visiting, and she shared her story with me. She shared that as a young student, she walked into a small cultural center for the first time, nervous, unsure, and a little bit out of place, which is often how I felt growing up. She didn't know anyone, and she certainly didn't see herself as someone who belonged in spaces like that. But inside, she found a volunteer who greeted her warmly, an exhibit that reflected her own heritage, and she found a hands-on program that invited her to create something of her own. And that didn't just change her afternoon that day, it changed her trajectory. She came back again and again, and she went on to tell me how she brought her family years later. She became a mentor in that same space and helps now the yet next young person feel seen. That is the quiet, powerful ripple of community impact. It's important to measure attendance, funding, and programs, yes, but the truest form of our impact of our work are the lives in those moments of connection. It is the lives in the spark of curiosity, the sense of belonging, the pride of culture, and the doors that open because someone took the time to welcome. That is what SCFD represents. We are not just funding organizations. Together, we are weaving a region. We are connecting urban and suburban, youth and aging populations, longtime residents, and newcomers. We're creating shared experiences that remind us that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. And in a time right now when division can feel loud, our work is a steady, powerful counterpoint. We build unity not by asking people to be the same, but by celebrating what makes us each unique and ensuring that everyone has access to those stories, those spaces, and those opportunities. As we look to the future of SCFD, the question before us is not just how we will sustain this work, but how we will expand its reach and deepen our collective impact. How do we ensure that every person, no matter their background, has that first moment of discovery like the woman I met? How do we support organizations in evolving while we stay rooted in our community and our values? How do we lead with intention, innovation, inclusion? And how do we make sure that the future of SCFD will be built the same way it has always been? It's together. It will be built through collaboration across our organizations, across our district and counties. through the listening sessions, through the shared belief in arts, culture, and science, that these are not luxuries. They are essential to a thriving and connected region. And we've already heard some of the great feedback from many of you that we'll want to continue to talk about today. And we'll need to revisit the formula. Yes, we'll need to look at compression issues felt across the tiers and counties. Absolutely. And beyond that, how do we build something that will continue to allow that light and that beautiful resiliency shine through? I also want to acknowledge that change is hard, and with change often comes anxiety, fear, and in some cases, trauma. That is why we have been so intentional about how we have built this road to reauthorization together, leaning into challenges and celebrating our collective successes. There will be multiple opportunities to connect in this process, so I urge you to connect and share your wisdom and ideas with us. Each of you plays a role in that future. Every decision, every partnership, every program contributes to the story that we are writing together. So this morning, I invite you to reflect on your own ripple story, the moment when you saw this work make a difference. Hold on to it, let it guide you, because when we stay grounded in collective impact, committed to unity, and stand bold about the future, we don't just sustain SCFD, we elevate it. So thank you again for tuning in, and now I will pass it back to Andy.
The almighty mute button caught me. My apologies, friends. Really powerful story that Andrea shared there, and really speaks to sort of the importance of what we're trying to achieve here. Let me take a minute just to sort of walk you through what the next hour is going to look like, so you've got a sense of flow. Our goal is that we're not talking at you for 60 minutes here. Also, that we've got ample opportunity for questions and answers and gathering some other information. So what we'll do is we're going to break it up into sort of bite-sized chunks. We're actually going to start with a poll, and we've got 3 polls sort of built in. I'll walk you through those as we get into the flow here. Where we want to start, though, really is going to be sort of some grounding on sort of history and background on SCFD, a little bit on the 2016 reauthorization process and insights from that, and how that's informing the approach that's being taken this time. What we'll then do, I'll step back in and walk everybody through sort of what the next 2 years is going to look like. We just got started right at the end of last year. We've probably had at this point 30 or 40 different conversations to date, and we're looking forward to continuing a lot of that dialogue, both small and large scale, over the next 2 years. Then we'll do a quick break for Q&A. We'll keep that focus mostly on process. Do another poll there that is actually gathering broader input on some of the insights that we've already heard. Then I'll ask John Carner, who's leading our financial analysis, to just walk through some basics on the model today, to make sure that everybody's working off the same math, quite frankly. So we've got some decent numbers there to sort of level set. We'll then do another poll with folks, and then Mo Graham, part of our team as well. Mo and I will walk through about 11 sort of the high level insights that we picked up so far in some of the conversations. And our goal is that we'll get through all of that, let's say by about 35 or about 40 after, and then still reserve another 15, 20 minutes for Q&A at the end. So again, our goal here truly is to make sure that we're dialoguing with you. So before we dive in, we want to know where everybody's from. We actually, just as I look up, hit the magic 200 of you in the room right now. So if we want to launch the first poll, we want to get a sense of sort of where everybody's coming from. So if you can use the poll on your screen on which county your organization considers your headquarters, love to sort of get a feel for how that's going to shake itself out. And as you guys are doing that, I can tell you, you're mirroring sort of what the pre-registration looked like. About 51%, that's exactly what the pre-registration on was for Denver. That is, just so we're all clear, that is over-representative of what Denver represents in the SCFD from the number of organizations. 30% of the SCFD orgs are based in Denver. So do recognize when we think about who's in the room, We do have some sort of overrepresentation there. We've got Arapahoe is about equally represented with where they are sort of organization-wise, as is Adams County. Jefferson County a little underrepresented, Douglas equally represented, and then Boulder is coming in just slightly under, about half actually of sort of where you guys fit organization-wise. So I just want to make sure that we are thinking both about who is in the room and who's not in the room as we sort of continue our dialogue. So let's take a step back and look a little bit on sort of the grounding formations of SCFD as well as the 2016 process. To do that, let me invite Jessica Cato, COO of the SCFD in.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. We know how busy everyone is, so we very much appreciate it. So what I really want to do very quickly is go over just really high level historical how SCFD was created, as well as some highlights, lessons learned from the 2016 reauthorization. So many of you may already know this information, but the SCFD was created in the late 1980s during one of the worst recessions in Colorado's history. I do want to point out that in 1988, the residents of this region during a recession voted in a brand new tax. That's very, very powerful to how much arts, culture, and science are valued by the residents of this district, that they said during a downturn that yes, we want to be taxed so that we have the access to this amazing programming. We don't want to see it go away. So the district has been reauthorized 3 times since its initial inception in 1988, most recently in 2016. And the current statute is sunsets in June of 2030, so we will be back on the ballot in November of 2028. So with that, during the 2016 reauthorization, there were some interesting lessons learned that we went back and found from people who were involved in that. With best intentions, obviously, from SCFD, the board of directors, as well as all the organizations that participated in that. What we heard afterwards were the following highlights. People did not feel the process was as transparent as they would have liked it to be. It was also not as inclusive. And that we didn't think big enough. There was a lot of conversations about incremental change, and the overarching takeaway we heard from people was that incremental change from the gate rather hamstrung the process, that we weren't thinking big enough, and that it took too long. For those of you who participated in 2016, it spanned 4 years of meetings, polls, surveys, work groups, task force. So it made it very difficult for people to stay engaged. So we've definitely heard all of these insights from our funded partners. And with those lessons learned, we attempted to craft a better process for the 2028 reauthorization. So SCFD crafted the process that GBSM is going to walk you through today, with the following goals in mind: to create an inclusive, transparent process for SCFD's stakeholders to facilitate equitable decision-making and outcomes, and to establish the foundation and structure for the next era of SCFD that recognizes the profound evolution of society and the arts. The Metro District looks very different today than it did in the late 1980s, and we want to make sure that SCFD reflects those changes, and that we're building an SCFD not just for today, but for the future. The SCFD Board of Directors approved in August of 2024 the process for which the stakeholders are going to the stakeholder process that we're kicking off this year. That was in August of 24. If anybody's interested in reading that document, it is on our website on Road to Reauthorization. And with that, we crafted a request for proposal in 25, and the board of directors hired GBSM to lead us through this process and the phases that Andy is going to walk you through now. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate that. So let me take a few minutes to walk you through both the team as well as sort of what the process is going to be. One of the reasons we wanted to add this webinar in was what we found is the more we talk about clarifying the process, I think the temperature comes down, the confidence in the process goes up, that sort of piece. So first, let me just sort of quickly run through who we sort of brought on board to comprise the team. And so what we've got is a group of 9 individuals that are part of our consultant team, and being led obviously by GBSM as sort of our lead here. So you've got a sense on our background. We do a significant amount of public affairs work, strategic communications work, management consulting work, organizational structure, process, strategic planning, those sorts of pieces. So we're sort of uniquely qualified both to lead sort of on the engagement side, as well as sort of the organizational structure and process piece that's coming through. You see the smiling faces of the team that we've got rounded out. John Carner on the bottom left, he's going to be part of the session today, leading our finance team. Mo Graham on the bottom right, also part of our presentation today. Mo's leading our creative and cultural outreach, ensuring that all of our engagement has sort of a creative component to it. Mo's a professional working artist. John is the furthest thing from a professional working artist, unless you consider Excel an art, and John does. So that's where he gets his creativity. Rounding out our team there, sort of from the GBSM end, Gabby sitting next to me on the couch. Virginia Garcia-Pivic, she is leading our Latinx outreach. Kaylee Cornell is partner in crime here on a lot of our public policy and general outreach. Neil Walia is leading our AAPI outreach. JC Futrell is leading our African American outreach. And Alana Plaza on the upper left, or upper right, I should say, currently is leading the parenting of her newborn son, and will be returning back to the team in a couple months here, and really helping out again on a lot of the sort of legislative side of things and thinking about sort of how this looks from the statute side. So how's the team going to function? We're organized into 5 separate phases. The phases will overlap a tad. And what you see is really starting in listening mode for the first, what that math equals out to, I think, about 8 months. There is not a model right now that we have. As I noted, we've been doing a significant amount of qualitative listening through a series of focus groups, a series of one-on-one meetings. We've deployed our cultural liaisons out to sort of community leaders in hard to engage communities to engage one-on-one. And we're sort of just sitting in that information right now, beginning to sort of pull some insights out. The closest to quantitative that we've gotten at this point really is framing up the existing model, and John will speak to that in a little bit here. Where we are going to go is sort of the first big milestone will happen in phase 2. And what you're going to see there is both a listening tour that includes a in-person workshop in each of the 7 counties, as well as 2 virtual workshops that will be district-wide. From those and the input gathered, what we're calling is conceptual models, which really are going to be thematic in nature. That would be, thinking in terms of one example of a theme might be maintain 3 tiers and adjust percentages. That's sort of at the level that we're talking about on that side. And then actually, Gabby, if you don't mind going back 1 slide, sorry about that. That piece, we're going to test in a quantitative survey. We're going to send a survey out to all funded organizations, gathering a significant amount of input, not just on sort of models and ideas, but what's working well, what's not, as well as feedback on what is the composition and sort of role of an advisory group. Obviously, our hope is that we touch all 304 organizations at some point in this process directly. It is very difficult to have 304 individuals reach consensus and sort of navigate through all of the inner workings. So we're going to build sort of an advisory group to be representative of sort of the various constituencies of the SCFD. And we want your input on how that group should be comprised and what it should be tasked with. So that group will sort of exist and work throughout the course of the project. Getting into this summer, into the fall, that is where we're really going to begin to sort of work through, and those sort of conceptual models that I was talking about, I'm envisioning we'll have like 6 or 8 thematic conceptual models. By late summer, early fall, the plan is that we will have probably 6 to 8 very specific financial models and structures that would have exact percentage splits, that sort of thing, that would have sort of the details on the formulas and those sorts of elements. John's team will get to work doing financial analysis of those at a tier level, as well as a representative level, where we'll pull sort of sample organizations that will be anonymous, obviously, but so that you've got a sense of, if I'm a fundraising heavy attendee light or paid attendance light tier 2, this is what it looks like. If I am a smaller fundraising, smaller attendance, but I've got very targeted impact in specific communities, here's what that looks like. We'll use that to begin to narrow down. And then as we move into phase 4, the plan will be that we then get in on 3 very targeted models. We will model those down to the individual organizational level. So every single one of the 304 SCFD organizations will see what their funding would look like in a future scenario if that model were selected. The other note on the modeling that we are integrating in, we have already heard loud and clear a significant amount of concern about what is the impact of the Sundance Film Festival coming to Boulder going to have on the SCFD. We're going to integrate that into the best of our ability in terms of forecasting out pre and post Sundance eligibility. Sundance will have to go through the exact same eligibility process as every other nonprofit that becomes SCFD eligible. And so that obviously will not happen on day one. And what we don't want to do is build a model that works great, and then suddenly, if there's a big impact from an entity like a Sundance coming in, that we suddenly break the model. Where that's going to get us is next summer, aim to be at a point where we've got a recommended option. We'll begin to work with folks in the state legislature and elsewhere to get that turned into bill language that would be introduced in the 2028 legislative session. The bill would work its way through the session between January and May of 2028. Then presuming it passes out of that would be up to a vote of the 7 county voters in November of 2028. Key thing to note, just again on the timeline side here, the existing model stays in place through the end of 2030. So this would kick in 2031. And given the fiscal years and how they shake themselves out, it would be a mid-year transition when the new model would go into place. So that's, I think, another piece. Andrea noted, change is hard. There will be ample time to sort of prep for the transition that will happen. And even the first calendar year when that happens, you'll have sort of the first 6 months on the existing model, second 6 months on the new. So let's dive into another quick poll here. And I think the piece, really, what I want to get is what's working well. So what you're going to see pop up on your screen are 10 different things that we have heard from the interviews and focus groups that we've done to date are working well with the SCFD. I'd like you to pick your top 3. The 3 sort of, this is sort of the working well, the best, the most impactful piece. This is why SCFD is good. If you begin to think in terms of, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater as you're thinking about model adjustments, this kind of input is what's going to begin to inform the kinds of models that we build. So again, what I'm hoping you can do is sort of pick your top three, and as you build those out, we'll share these results in a little bit here. Right now, there's about 20% participated, so I'm going to give you guys a few more seconds to do that. While you're doing that, I also do want to call your attention to the Q&A feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen. In our next Q&A session, which we'll have after John goes through some of the financials, what we'll do is pull some questions from there, and then we'll also keep those for the Q&A session that we'll do at the end of the meeting here. So we're now at about 70% participation. You guys are way outperforming the voters of the metro area. Congratulations. And so I'll go ahead and just, I think, Kayla, if you guys want to maybe screen share the top results here. This is fairly consistent, I will tell you, with what we've been hearing. One is that the consistency and predictability without fail from tier 1 to tier 3, from community organizations, stakeholders, just knowing that the funding is there. And the predictability of it has come up in nearly every conversation that we've had. You can begin to see sort of that second one coming in about collaboration existing among other arts and culture organizations. I'll just add to that. Some of the insights that we've heard in our conversation so far is, yes, collaboration within existing SCFD funded organizations, but also with others that perhaps aren't eligible yet, or other organizations that are doing great work, but maybe they aren't a nonprofit or those sorts of things. And really sort of elevating the ecosystem is sort of the big theme that we've heard on that front. So again, before John comes in, let me just sort of repoint you to that Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. And then what I'll do is have John step in here and level set everybody on where we sit on the financial side.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, my name is John Karner. As Andy mentioned, I'm with the firm called Summit Street Group. We work in the capital planning and really public finance space, but have worked quite a bit with special districts, specifically a variety of art districts that are partnered with special districts across Colorado. So we were really excited and super excited to be part of this great team and this really important work. I did mention I saw one chat that said Excel isn't art, so I'm excited to see that we do have some support from the group, so I appreciate that. So let me just jump in. We're going to give a little bit of highlights of some of the early analysis. As Andy mentioned, we really see our work as kind of two phases across the 5-phase effort that the team's got. In that first phase, we are really looking at, right, what's some important analysis or data insight that can be helpful so for the team during those kind of working sessions and stakeholder engagement sessions that will take place taking place now, will take place in the coming months. So we're looking in the existing world today, what's some really good data insights, which we'll talk about as well on this webinar. And then in the future, once Andy and the team have got some input, we will again support the effort to look through potential models and alternative structures of how the funding distribution could work in the future SCFD. So today we do have both really good data set from the SCFD team. So I want to thank them for sharing. They've shared us with really full 10-year granular data that allows us to look really at the macro and the micro level. So how does this impact distributions across the tiers, all the way down to each individual that's been funded from SCFD over the last 10 years. We're not going to get into the weeds today on that at that level, but we are sharing that with the full team. And so they're incorporating that feedback and insight to make sure they understand how SCFD's funding really can change and impact across an organization based on how that organization operates. So today, focusing on the macro level, what you have in front of you is really just a snapshot of how the funding has changed over time since SDF started in '89 and through 24, which is our last financial audited statements from SCFD. No surprise, everyone knows, dramatic growth from a nominal level, right? We've seen from $14 million straight to $85 million is tremendous growth. And again, just looking at the numbers directly, you see growth across all three tiers. The percentages have changed slightly. And so you'll see the percentages drop from tier 1. They've gone up slightly from tier 3 and see a slight drop in tier 2. And so it's important to see, right, where not only have the dollars changed, but the percentages change. And a lot of that impacts basically how the tranching works, right? So you have a locked tranche of dollars into tier one that's committed for the first 38. And as the pie essentially as a whole grows, the funding will essentially fall toward a distribution closer to that second tranche, which you see at the bottom of that footnotes there. So no surprises here. I think from a whole level, everyone is seeing tremendous growth. Positive as those dollars have been going greater across the organization. Now, as with any data and financial site, and we want to make sure we're really transparent, we show this with every team. There's other ways to look at this data, and so we can go to the next slide. If you inflate these dollars, you still see a similar story, but it does change a little bit. So 1989 was a while ago for folks who were still around though. Some of these calls may not have been around at that point. Dollars were different in 89. And so if you adjust these dollars for inflation, the picture stays relatively same for tier one and tier three, where you still have growth. That growth is not as great because the dollars in 23 were worth less than they were today. And so what you are seeing for tier two is that the narrative does change. In other words, if you inflate the dollars from 1989, while you saw a nominal increase of $100,000, your purchasing power has actually dropped for tier two. This is where they were actually on net, and if you inflation adjusted, we're receiving more dollars in 1989. And so I think this was just an example where we are really doing our best effort to show as much information in different forms and formats so that the team can kind of really analyze and see how this is growth across both the tier levels and the funding entities. So that we really have a good understanding and the team is well informed when they're doing that stakeholder engagement over the next couple of months. So I will pause there and hand it back to Andy. And again, we have
Awesome.
a handful of data on the back end, so happy to answer questions if they come up later.
Great. Thanks, John. So why don't we dive in? We'll take a couple of questions before we get into some of the additional insights. I think the first person that was in is Rita. Rita, I don't have your last name, but we're going to pull you up on screen here in a second. And I believe your question sort of revolves around the county cultural councils. Kaylee, Gabby, you guys want to pull Rita in?
Rita, if you're able to raise your hand on Zoom to come on camera, that'll be, there we go. And then...
Awesome. Rita, if you want to turn your mute off and camera on, we'd love to see your smiling face.
Hello. I don't see a control for the camera. I only have access to a control for the
All
audio.
right, then
It's okay.
we'll see your beautiful name. How about that?
Yeah, most people know what I look like. Hi, I'm Rita Valent-Quinn. I am the producing executive director of Modus Theater, based in Boulder County.
Yep.
And so my question was about the role of the cultural councils in the process. And is that a way also that organizations that, for example, might not be pulled in to be these anonymous case studies can also have a voice in the process?
Sure. I'll go ahead and take that one, Rita, and appreciate you raising it. So one, we actually had the heads of each of the cultural councils come together for one of the 6 focus groups that we've done already. So we've had one conversation with them sort of at that level at this point. We're also envisioning, obviously pending sort of feedback from the community in the survey, that the county cultural councils would have some sort of representation within the advisory group that'll be formed. And just even to share some of the insights so far, we've heard sort of a variety of pieces of feedback on those county cultural councils in terms of both sort of the importance of local control of the funds and sort of that local directing and that sort of thing. We've also heard a little bit of sort of some questioning on is there sort of any amount of bias that actually occurs when you get down to that level of sort of decision making, and how do you ensure accountability there? But we definitely recognize the importance of the county cultural councils as we go through. So appreciate that. Our second question, let me go back through here, is Gabriel Rodriguez. Gabriel, do you want to raise your hand and we can get you, there you go. Go for it.
Hey, good morning, Andy and team. Hey, the question I have from Adams County, just on my perspective, is are you planning on meeting with the Board of County Commissioners of all 7 districts in person in a meeting? Because they, as you know, they're different down in Douglas, in Arapahoe, Adams, Denver, Boulder. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. You plan on meeting with each individual county as well.
Andrea, you want to grab
Yeah.
that one?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the question, Gabriel. It's an important one. And so the answer is a very profound yes. Actually, I've already had a study session with the Adams County Commissioners here recently and am planning to make my way through all of the counties in the district, in addition to also meeting with local government. So whether it's mayors, city managers, arts and cultural institutions that are connected to local city government, I've had touch points with a variety of those already. I'm happy to come and talk to anyone who will listen to me because this is really important and we want to make sure we get it right. So if you have thoughts or additional audiences that would be good for me to connect with, please reach out to any one of us and gladly plug that in. I hope that's helpful.
Awesome. So what we're going to do, we're going to launch our third poll, and then Mo and I will run through sort of some of the other insights that we've heard, and then we'll sort of close out with a good 15 minutes of Q&A here in addition. The third one is sort of the yang to the yin, if you will, of what's working well sort of on the SCFD structure and process. And really, this is about sort of the biggest challenges or opportunities that we ought to be considering with the SCFD. As we think about new approaches to funding models, as we think about even just operational challenges, those sorts of things. And so you'll see there the 10 that we flagged. Again, these are things that have been identified from the 30 or so conversations that we've had with arguably probably at this point, probably 80 to 100 people at this stage. And again, the way we're going to use these as we think about sort of looking at both the model and the operational structure is how do we either, one, capitalize on the opportunity, or two, is there a way where that challenge where it can be sort of very easily addressed? One of the big things that we're certainly consciously aware of is this has been reauthorized 3 times. We'll be approaching the 40th year of SCFD funding when this goes through the state legislature. Obviously, we want to ensure that whatever we build will be voted positively by the people. Change creates risk. At the same time, I don't think anybody could look at the numbers distribution that John just shared and not see that some change needs to happen. And so our real goal here is to make sure that we're adjusting the model in a way that helps set the SCFD up for who the Denver region is today and the scientific and cultural ecosystem that we've got. These, I think, take a little bit more thought. So I'm going to give you guys a few more minutes or a few more seconds here to get your responses in. All right. We are at about 2/3 of you in. So why don't we go ahead and close that out and share. What you're going to see here is the issue of quantifying attendance. This is one we've heard loud and clear. And I think what I would just add to that from a nuance standpoint. Yes, paid versus free and sort of all that goes with that are the ratios right. But secondarily, as you think about what is virtual attendance, and especially in a post-COVID era, as more entities are doing virtual engagement, nailing sort of how do we quantify virtual participation. We would probably contend that simply having something on a website perhaps is not as engaging as an actual virtual engagement sort of in person. At the same time, asynchronous engagement can be an amazing and powerful thing. so that folks don't have to worry about getting the kids to bed in time to get online for an 8 p.m. experience or that sort of thing, or if they've got evening jobs and that sort of stuff. So that attendance one is definitely heard loud and clear. On the sort of the unity across tiers, I will just, if I could channel my friend Tony Garcia from Su Teatro in our focus group we did, when I noted something about tiers and what do they feel, his response was, "Can we stop talking about tiers?" That sort of, you're putting us in groups, that sort of element, and really we ought to be thinking as a regional ecosystem. And that piece, I think, from both an equity standpoint, as well as when you begin to think, I mean, what we've heard loud and clear on tier twos is, you almost don't want your brothers and sisters in tier two to succeed, because you will get less money if they do, because of the way the splits are set up and some of those challenges there. And then similarly on the tiering, we've got some tier threes that get more money than tier twos, and they intentionally stay in tier three in order to have access to those funds. So those are some of the issues that we're certainly going to be looking to address. And then your third one I noted earlier, we sort of worded here as additional organizations, whether it's too many, going from 304 to call it 400 or something like that, or whether it's just of significant size, like the Sundance example that we shared. So let's go and sort of give you our top 10, if I could channel my old David Letterman stuff here. A few of these early insights, and we'll hit these pretty quick. The first one really is this idea that sort of trust in the process. We have heard loud and clear, is this going to be a legitimate process? Is this going to be transparent? All of that. What I will tell you, we've been pleased to see the more of these conversations we've had, we are hearing from folks that they are willing to sort of engage and trust. My goal throughout this process is that we never lose that. The minute that people begin to feel any sort of hesitation, we're not going to end up with the right folks at the table to make the smart decisions. Mo, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I think just along those lines, the other thing that we're hearing is there's just some pockets of conversing and collaborating among other organizations and brainstorming about what some of these new SCFD models could look like. And I think, so to Andy's point, encouraging everybody to really engage in this process that we've created to support what we think will be a really lovely outcome.
Awesome. We sort of, I think we've sort of beaten this one to death a little bit as far as the struggles with the current model. And obviously, I again want to balance that, because I mean, the other piece that we have heard from some folks is too much change could inject risk of this even being renewed. And so making sure that we are striking the right balance of putting appropriate levels of change in on that one.
And I think something that we all are aware of as well is that the brand awareness of SCFD is low if we don't see the bear. The bear is kind of the token that lets everybody know. But then if you just simply say the words or the letters SCFD in a casual conversation, sometimes people are lacking awareness about what that is. And so a priority of making sure we can create a shift there.
Awesome. The impact on tier twos, again, when you look at those inflated numbers, when you take the $89 and make them present day value, when that is half of what the 89 value was, that really is sort of compressing from the tier two standpoint, the amount of funding available there.
Yeah, and there's also just some differences in variability around the county cultural councils and how each of them operate. And what we also have heard quite a bit is that creates some challenges for tier threes and how to navigate and how to access funding.
And Mo, I'm going to skip the first one on the next slide because we hit it on the first poll about the predictability and security of the funding. If you want to talk about the grants.
Yeah, and so another thing that I think we all hear, and I think that this will really hit a lot of your hearts as you're listening to this, is that the application process can be really challenging for smaller organizations, and that when you have a lower administrative capacity, trying to work through that can be difficult and can be a strong barrier to entry.
The quantification of metrics is a big one, and this piece, I think the way it's been phrased by a couple of folks is the rich get richer. Is too much emphasis put on the size of an organization's budget in quantifying the amount of SCFD funding they get. The other side of that coin is ensuring that there is sufficient organizational budget and sophistication to enable a solid operation, and that the public tax dollars are going to be effectively used. So that piece, and then we noted sort of the audience segmentation and sort of how that value comes in.
And I think this next one really just talks and speaks to the value that our tier threes are doing in community. And sometimes the tiering structure can create sort of a value judgment based on their budgets and what they're able to contribute. And so wanting to make sure that we're considering the ways that the tiering structure might impact public perception or even the way that funding happens.
Awesome. And then the last piece here, and this, the more we've talked, the more we've sort of heard some examples. One is the importance and value of particularly the program officers to the local organizations, particularly among the tier threes. And there is what we've heard some interest in exploring additional, whether that's technical support, leadership development. One of the things that we're hearing sort of more recently, as you think about the brand awareness of the SCFD, is if the SCFD were more visible in the community at different events, perhaps even putting on various events where you're sort of creating some of those connections and that sort of thing, so that it becomes a more sort of consumer-oriented brand that is out there. So here, let's open it back up to our Q&A piece here. Let me get on my list. I think our next person we had is Sophia Hailu. Sophia, do you want to raise your hand and we'll get you in here?
Hi. So my question was, is there anything that organizations can do in their communications during the reauthorization process for their communications and marketing?
Yeah, Andrea, you wanna chat on that?
I'd love to. Thank you so much for your question, Sophia. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to continue for all of us to share widely what SCFD is, the impact, and incredibly important to engage in this process. If you go to our website, scfd.org, on the homepage, there's a Road to Reauthorization tab. In that tab, you'll find a wide range of resources to include things like a fact sheet, an FAQ document that we will update from this webinar based on all the great questions and feedback we're getting here, as well as other things that you can use to insert into newsletters, share with your board. If you're interested in me coming out to talk with your board, I'm also willing to do that. So hopefully you'll find everything you need there. And yes, please share it as often as you can. Make sure your team is well versed. I think that's incredibly important. And then if you don't find what you need there, other ways that you can plug in, and feel free to reach out to MNI, is we actually have a communications committee that is made up of our funded org partners and communicators that have those great skills that we lean on heavily. And so you're welcome to join us. Send MRI a note and we'd love to plug you in. We also have a lot of really exciting things coming up that we're hoping to activate more of that brand awareness and some of those points that Andy and Mo raised. So please connect in, reach out if you don't find what you need. And thank you in advance for helping us spread the good word.
And then let me ask my team if you guys can drop. So Emma Mantooth is the head of communications for SCFD that Andrea was mentioning. We'll drop her email and Andrea's email in the chat so you guys have easy access to get in touch with them. Our next question is going to be coming from Evan Weissman. Evan, do you want to raise your hand so we can find you and bring you on? Thank you, sir. Go ahead and come off mute and let's hear what you got.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, appreciate y'all doing this. My question is just, you alluded to it in the capacity bit about the application as well, like recognizing that for smaller organizations, it's just tough. And so I'm wondering, in this process that y'all are leading, are there ways that you can weigh what you're hearing from smaller organizations when it happens? And I guess what I mean by that is it's hard to continually go to these types of things. And whereas a large organization have staff members who they can dedicate to do this. And so, and I also think a lot of people, myself, I'll speak for myself. I know my opinions, and I can give them to you probably right now. And then, so yeah, I don't know the answer to this, but it's a suggestion. If you can figure out a way to do that, it would be really helpful in equity in terms of size of organization.
Sure. Andrea, maybe you want to take it from sort of like how we evaluate, and I can sort of speak from an engagement side to make sure that we're balancing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Evan, for the question. We will certainly take this back and look at how we might be able to recalibrate some of our strategies here. I'll say, part of the intentionality in building this process is to try to meet people where they are, recognizing, to your point, for smaller organizations, it's tough to make time to get away because that's time away from your work and whatnot. And so the questionnaire hopefully will be something that you can do in your own time when that works and give us feedback there. But if there are other ways to connect in, would love to hear those ideas beyond what we've already shared. Because again, the beauty of this is we're cultivating this together, and the feedback that we're hearing is helping to shape some of those subsequent phases in our process. And so really put a lot of weight to that. To your point, I'm not sure how we could weigh that, but I'm sure there's some brilliant ideas in this fantastic project team to help us account for that in some meaningful way. I appreciate the question.
Yeah, and
Anything
what I'll
you'd
add, yeah, I'll just add in one of the pieces that Emma's done an amazing job leading out on from the SCFD side is that scfd.org/reauthorization webpage. So, I mean, even this video will be on that webpage no later than the end of this week, hopefully as soon as tomorrow, as long as the download goes well and all that sort of thing. We've also got sort of the outbound information, so that's going to be the hub for that. And I think to your point, Evan, thinking about sort of those asynchronous opportunities where more questions can come in this way that aren't dependent on someone's ability to be available from 9 to 10 a.m. on a Wednesday morning and that sort of thing, especially when you think about sort of some of the smaller tier threes. Appreciate that. I do want to flag a couple questions have come in just through the chat on availability of the presentation and that. So yes, we'll have sort of this video up there. We will also go ahead and put the PDF of the slide deck up there as well, so that you're not dependent on sort of scrolling through a 60-minute video to get your hands on the slides. I will tell you the sort of the data in John's slide on the financial side of things. That's in the fact sheet that's currently on that scfd.org/reauthorization. I guess maybe the team can throw that link in the chat as well, so that folks have that there. I don't know that we have anyone else in Q. All right, somebody's coming. Go ahead and raise your hand. Somebody just went into the Q&A with something. Gabriel, do you want to raise your hand? We'll pull you back on here again. Gabriel, it looks like you're off mute. If you want to.
Hey, thanks for taking my next question, Andy.
There you go.
As a local government administrator, it takes funding, it takes money to run these grant programs, and this CFD is collecting $85 million. to disperse to the community, that's amazing. But if we want SCFD to be able to support SCFD organizations, if we want to do better at marketing, they need better funding. And I think their percentage is 1% or 1.5% of the total SCFD. Are there plans on addressing that and letting people know SCFD staff, they do need more funding to be able to do these things? They can't just keep operating this way. They probably do need more staff to help out. If organizations go, that slide earlier from what was it, like 50 organizations in tier 3 and now what it is now, I mean, they need more funding to be able to do that, and it does need to be addressed. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Andrea, you want to take that? And Donna, I'm going to pull you on next. I apologize. I skipped over you when I saw Gabriel pop up there. Andrea.
Gabriel, I think our entire SCFD staff is beaming with appreciation for your question and for acknowledging the incredible lift that has to go on day to day to keep things moving. We absolutely need to look at the 1.5%. While we're grateful that it grew from the last reauthorization, to your point, it is a very different time now and only continues to grow. And in order to sustain the pace and the workload, we need to make sure we're investing in the organization in the right way from that standpoint as well. So yes, under review and TBD based on all the number crunching and art that John is doing to help us figure out how we can account for that.
Awesome. Thanks. Donna, again, my apologies for skipping over you, but we've got you on now. Go for it.
Worries. No worries. We talk a lot about community and unity, and I think that those are very important to our overall community. But we, out of COVID, we developed Zooms, and we developed cultural council meetings that happen without any in-person engagement. And while I am all for efficiency, the sense of community that we used to have years ago before we were in this Zoom world was so much stronger with how we as organizations could put our thinking caps on to help fill slots when there were openings on councils, etc. And now we have, and it really, the staff does a wonderful job, and I have been there. The staff does a wonderful job transferring the questions that come up during those meetings, but it feels to some of us, because we've had some internal discussions back in our world, it feels that it's a lost opportunity, that there is so much only Zoom when it comes to the cultural councils and listening in on their conversations and not being able to have eye contact, not being able to engage. We do want it to be efficient. We do respect their volunteerism and the exceptional amount of work that council members give. But I hope when we talk about the process, that's a point that doesn't completely get lost. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate that, Donna. And I'll just flag that has come up in a number of the conversations that we've had. I will tell you, if I can sort of juxtapose two things here. One, near unanimously, what we've heard from the tier 3s is they miss that personal connection, and or sort of the simplicity of answering a question. That the attempt is done to answer it as much as possible, but the tier 3 knows the answer in those situations. On the flip side, when we did do the focus group with the cultural council leaders, we heard sort of two things. One, we heard a few of them saying they miss it too. That lack of connection, that lack of sort of touch feel is sort of missing there. And then to your point, there was some concern about just capacity. And could a cultural council that struggles to fit everything into a current agenda, would in person sort of inhibit that ability to do that and begin to place too heavy of an onus on those individuals. So that is definitely something that we'll be looking at and figuring out sort of where is their guidance and or requirement from SCFD, and where is their simple just sort of local control and decision making as it relates to how they handle it. Because I don't believe, Jessica or Andrea, you guys may know, we don't require them to be on Zoom currently, do we?
No.
No.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have, hybrid opportunities to connect in.
Yeah.
And so the feedback really helps us identify the way that we show up for these. So this is incredibly helpful to hear. So please keep doing that. But yeah, we try to keep it flexible. Anything you'd add there, Jessica?
No, I think you got that.
All right, as we are pushing up on 10 o'clock, one of our big beliefs is to be respectful of everyone's time. The last question that did come up, will we include the poll results in the presentation? Absolutely. We'll create a new slide for each of the poll questions with the full results there so you guys can see that. And then, Andrea, why don't I flip it to you to close us out?
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy. Well, if we were in person, we'd all pause and give a big round of applause. So let's give that recognition to this fantastic group. I hope this was helpful to everyone. And as we come to a close, I also want to recognize our incredible staff and once again, the project team for their relentless pursuit of building something transformative with all of us. So incredibly helpful. Not the end, it's the first of many touch points with us. And I really, as we're winding down here, want us to return to that idea of the ripple effect. Because the truth is that ripples don't just move outward, they also bring us back to the center. And right now, in this moment, we are being called to the center of ourselves and what matters most, our shared purpose, our responsibility, and our shared humanity. And undoubtedly, there will be challenges ahead. There will be moments of tension, uncertainty, because change is hard. And that's the reality of any system change that is alive, growing, and striving to do better, like we all are. What defines us, though, is not the absence of those challenges, it's how we move through them. And I just want to emphasize the with unity part of that. And unity doesn't mean uniformity. This is not a one size fits all because that doesn't work. We already know that. And it doesn't mean that we'll always agree. What it means is that we will remain committed to one another, even when the path is difficult, especially when it's difficult. It means that we'll listen with intention and that we'll lead with empathy and we'll stay rooted in the belief that we are all stronger together than we are apart. And alongside unity, we must carry fortitude and the kind of fortitude that sharpens us and allows us to stay steady in our mission, especially when the road gets uneven. The kind that pushes us to keep going, keep showing up for our communities, for our organizations, for each other. It's the kind that reminds us that this work has always required the courage and that we are more than capable of meeting in this moment. And just as important as fortitude is, healing is also another sentiment I want to leave with you because communities can't thrive if they're not whole, and systems can't evolve if they don't make space for reflection, repair, and renewal. Healing asks us to acknowledge where we've been, to learn from it, and to move forward with greater care. It asks us to create spaces where all voices are heard, all stories are valued, and where all people feel that they belong. This is our path forward, a path where we stand in that unity, where we move with fortitude and intention, and where we can commit to the ongoing work of healing within our communities and within ourselves. If we do that, if we truly lean into those values, then the future of SCFD will not just be sustained, it will be strengthened, it will thrive, it will elevate. It will be more inclusive, more resilient, and more reflective of the vibrant region we serve. So, as you heard today, phase two is going to introduce 9 workshop opportunities in addition to questionnaires, and we're available as well. Feel free to reach out to join us along that feedback journey. Give us your unfiltered feedback. It's important and it's how we'll shape the future. And so those ripples that we talked about, they will continue to grow wider. They will reach further when we do that work, and they will carry forward a legacy of impact that none of us could create alone, but are responsible, all of us, for shaping. So with that, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the commitment that you bring each and every day, and thank you for being part of this shared journey as we move forward. Have a great week.